I'd like to go ahead and begin by establishing our meditation posture. You can feel free to have your cameras on or off. I like to begin by just rocking the body from side to side, front to back, maybe moving the head. And allowing the body to settle into a balanced, upright position. Sensing the weight of the body on your seat. Relaxing the belly. Just really feeling that natural stability of the body. And with the bones carrying the weight of the body, perhaps allowing the muscles around the ribs and the chest to also relax and become wider and softer. Softening the eyes and softening the mouth. Just relaxing the body right here, right now. And now finding a place in the body where you can feel the sensations of the breath breathing the body. someplace that it's easy to feel them. Maybe the nostrils or the throat, in the chest, or all the way down the echo of the breath in the lower abdomen. Just find one place and rest the mind there. Often it's helpful to begin noticing pauses between the breaths, whether they're short or long. Just staying present for those pauses. Noticing those natural moments of stillness between the breaths. Staying curious about the breath of each moment. Having found those pauses between the breaths, also noticing that each pause ends by starting a new breath. So paying close attention to those beginnings. No need to control the breathing, just observing the breath, breathing the body. And perhaps having found those pauses and those beginnings, and the breath can rest along the length of the breath, knowing the inhalations as in-breaths and knowing the exhalations as out-breath. And in these last few moments of the meditation, now turning to observe the mind. Just having a look at the qualities of mind. Is the mind feeling relaxed or tight? Or neither? That was our meditation practice for this evening. If you have any thoughts about that, questions, we can discuss that at the end. And at this moment, I'm going to go ahead and shift into the meditation, into the Dhamma talk rather. And again, just feel free to have your cameras on or off. And starting with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. This week we are on the fourth of our series of 7 talks on the factors of awakening, factors of enlightenment. And it's okay if you haven't been here for all the other 3. It's we're taking one topic at a time, sort of addressing each topic each week. And however, just to say what the 7 are, so that you are aware of the overall framework. So the 7 factors of awakening, as they're described in early Buddhism, are mindfulness, investigation of dhammas, energy or sometimes effort, and joy. That's our topic today. And tranquility or calm, and samadhi, concentration, or sometimes absorption, and then equanimity. Okay, so those are the 7, said to be the 7 qualities that are both necessary in order for profound insight, life-changing insight to happen, and also the qualities of the mind of someone who's had those kinds of insight. And these are really, this particular framework is one of the things that is unique to Buddhism, that grouping of qualities and understanding that their role in the practice. And right away, just even hearing what they are, you might think, they're not that unusual. We're not talking about being able to, teleport yourself into some other realm of existence, or, some kind of special skills, or, grueling. Sometimes we hear about different types of grueling bodily mortification, different traditions. It's not, these are not those things. These are qualities that we've experienced. But the difference between the everyday or the mundane ways that we experience this quality and these qualities becoming the characteristics of the mind that can awaken to an experience of reality that you've never had before, has to do with the using them for the purpose of really investigating the nature of reality, investigating the nature, experiencing what's true about your life. So it's about turning, this is why we begin with mindfulness, because it is about turning toward the experience that we're having and becoming what feels like more and more intimate with it. And the reason I give that qualifier of that what feels like is because you couldn't possibly be any more intimate with it, right? That is your life. But there is a way in which we can start to feel that we are approaching the qualities of the moment. And that's some of what's helpful in terms of our topic today. So our topic today, as I said, is joy. And Buddhism is sometimes criticized for being a negative type of tradition, a negative type of spiritual tradition, because oftentimes we're talking about suffering, or we're talking about unsatisfactoriness, or what is difficult about our lives, or resistance that we have to reality. Sometimes we talk about the hindrances, the obstacles to insight. But there are also many teachings about joy, many, many teachings. And I'm not going to go into a survey of them. I actually did that a few months back. So if you didn't catch that talk, that one's also on the YouTube channel. Talk about the different types of joy. But the particular type of joy that is a factor of awakening is the Pali word for it, the ancient Indian language in which the early Buddhist teachings are captured, is Pali. And the Pali word for it is piti. P-I-T-I, P-E-T. So it's a particular kind of joy or happiness. And And that said, it's very helpful to find other kinds of joy, before I get into the details of PT, other kinds of joy in our practice, for the purpose of really giving us a motivation to come to the cushion. I was just in the car with somebody today, on my way to the dentist, and we were talking about how to have a more regular practice. And one of the ways to have a more regular practice is when you start to experience more joy on the cushion, and joy in general in your life, because then you kind of naturally are willing to sit down. It's not such a chore. And so some of the you could say the preparatory practices for developing joy in your life, one is, believe it or not, ethics. Having good, upright, ethical, moral life is helpful to the development of joy, and joy on the cushion in particular. Why? Because if you are living an unethical life, you're living a not upright life, then that tends to create agitation in the mind. It tends to create a state of constant uncertainty, or constant vigilance, or constant remorse. So that kind of overall support for clarity in the mind and steadiness in the mind, in terms of ethics, is very important. So we're taking some things for granted, that you're willing to make the choice to live an upright life and to do the things that help you literally be able to sleep at night, literally be able to look yourself in the mirror, literally be able to sit down on the cushion and be okay with what you observe. Not that it's not difficult. At times it can be quite difficult, but knowing that what you're observing there isn't something that is intrinsically harmful or unwholesome because of the choices that were made. So that's a place to start. And then there's a particular kind of joy that goes with that. It's called pamoja or pamuja. The two different ways that the same word is pronounced in Pali. And so pamoja is reflecting on the fact that you are living an upright life, that you are living an ethical life. It's reminding yourself about having made some good choices. So when you make a good choice in your life, whatever good choice you make, it's a good moment. It's an opportunity to say, oh, right, great. Acknowledge that for yourself. Celebrate that for yourself, even small ones. That helps to shift the lens over from negativity over to a more joyful view. But there are this particular kind of joy that is mentioned in the Awakening Factors, PT, is a type of joy that, generally speaking, comes through meditative states. It's not. It does happen off the cushion quite frequently, actually, but usually it's initially developed during the meditation on the bench or chair or bed or cushion or whatever it is that you're meditating on. It's usually something that is initially cultivated there, and then it can carry over quite easily, actually, into other parts of your life. And so PT is a specific kind of happiness, and it's interesting to see, different folks, different practitioners, different teachers have different ideas about what these qualities are sometimes. And PT is one of those. So as an example, I went to look for, so I want to say PT is a physical kind of joy. It tends to be very stimulating. and it's intended to be stimulating, actually. So the Buddha divided up the 7 factors such that first factor of mindfulness is said to be useful at all times. And then those next 3 factors, so investigation, energy, and joy, are said to be stimulating factors. And then the next 3 factors, calm, concentration, and equanimity, are said to be calming factors. And so you can see that they might not necessarily be sequential. Sometimes we need some calming factors right away when we sit down, right? We sit down and there's a jumble of energy that we need to be able to attend to. So the Buddha very much spoke about how to find our equilibrium or balance using these factors as well. But so piti is a stimulating factor, is very much a physical factor. It has to, by definition, be pleasant. So if you have some kind of physical vibration or something, and you think, oh, maybe this is piti, but it feels yucky, or it feels painful, then that's not piti, because it, by definition, has to be a pleasant quality or a pleasant state. That said, very strong piti will like blow your head off. Very strong piti can very much kind of push the needle close to the uncomfortable side. And that's when you know you kind of need to back off the energy of it. But that said, then I was reading Bhante Gunaratana, so very, very esteemed Sri Lankan monk, elderly Sri Lankan monk who has a monastery just about an hour and a half from here in West Virginia. He's written a number of books about mindfulness, and I was looking at what he had to say about piti, and he says it's not physical. That piti is not physical, and sukha is physical. So sukha is another quality, also translated oftentimes as happiness or joy, and those two often go together. But I would say the other way. And in fact, so then I went to the Visuddhimagga. So Visuddhimagga is a very ancient commentary on the suttas that was written by a monk named Buddhaghosa, also very esteemed monastic. And this is what it says in the Visuddhimagga, this commentaries on the sutta. It says, piti, he's translating, so the translator has translated Buddhaghosa's piti as happiness, just so that we know that. And its function is to refresh the body and mind, or its function is to pervade, thrill with rapture. Now, mind you that when I used to first hear this translation of piti as rapture, I used to think, oh, that's just exaggeration. But actually, it would tell you that it's not. It's not. It can really be like that, like, what? So it says here in the Visuddhimagga, it is manifested as elation. And there are 5 kinds. And this is how we know that there is a distinction between what Bhanteji said and what Buddhaghosa said, what Gunaratana said and Buddhaghosa said. Buddhaghosa said a long time ago, there are 5 kinds. There's the quote-unquote minor happiness, the momentary happiness, the showering, the uplifting, and the pervading. And the minor happiness, so kind of like light piti, you might say, he says, is only able to raise the hairs on the body. So this I often use the metaphor of, it's kind of like when you have cold chills. It can feel like that in the body, but there's no cold to it, actually. So that's one way that you might experience it, is as like that, as like some kind of like feeling like cold chills in the body, or this kind of like raising of hairs, as they're saying. Also, typically, sometimes people experience it as like a warmth in certain parts of the body. There's the momentary happiness happiness, momentary piti, which is like flashes of lightning. Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. It's kind of like a pulse. You kind of get it like a pulse of joy, like a sudden kind of energetic jolt of happiness. Then there's the showering happiness, or sometimes this is called the raining happiness. Raining is like rain, like, thunderstorms kind of rain. Showering happiness, which breaks over the body again and again like waves. I would say this is actually one of the more typical ways that it's experienced, that PT is experienced as this kind of joy that just comes in a wave, either from the top to the bottom or the other way, or kind of maybe out from the center, and people experience it in that way. And I'll say why about that in a minute. And then there's the uplifting happiness. So now, even though I said you don't have to be able to levitate, to portal yourself into some other dimension, the uplifting happiness is said to be enough to levitate the body. And Buddhaghosa gives us two stories about levitating the body. And one of them is beautiful, is about the daughter of one of the clans in the village by a particular monastery, where they were going to be having a big ceremony on the full moon. And so what happens is that all the four communities, quote unquote, the parisa, the lay women and lay men, and ordained women and ordained men, and now I would say the multifold sangha, because we would include any other genders that happen to be identified in there. All of the communities were there, and they were offering lamps. And she saw that, and she reflected on the Buddha as being the cause of this great celebration, and what a wonderful thing that the Dhamma had come into the world, and that it lifted her up. It lifted her up and took her to the shrine, and she arrived at the shrine before her family. That was the story. She arrived at the shrine before her family, and they were like, "What road did you take?" Literally, that's the quote from the parents. "What road did you take to get here?" And she's like, "No, I just flew." So this is one of the old stories. And again, I think of this in terms of sometimes people can feel this in the meditation. You literally feel kind of an uplift. You feel suddenly like, oh, I'm sitting a little bit more upright, or like there's this natural kind of release, positive release of energy, and you can feel that the body is wanting to be a little bit more upright. So whether or not you believe stories like this, it's about, again, it's about this, it's both an embodied and a mental experience, because joy, it's about joy. And so why would this be happening? So one thing that I want to say is piti develops in the meditation as a result of the continuity of attention and the degree of relaxation. You have to have both of those two. You may have noticed that anytime I give a guided meditation, I always begin by helping, I hope, you to find your posture, but also find your relaxation within your meditation posture. Because that relaxation, they work together, right? The body, the relaxation of the body can help the mind to settle down. And when the mind settles down, then the body also becomes less fidgety, right? And so there can be this kind of back and forth, this sort of like positive spiral between the bodily relaxation and the mental relaxation. So having that relaxation is helpful. And the continuity of the attention is also part of allowing the mind to relax enough to feel this joy. So in a way, I often relate to piti personally as it's an expression of the mind-body relief. Like, wow, we get to just relax and we just get to pay attention to one thing. How cool is that? And then that relief expresses itself as piti, as this kind of stimulating joy. So, and you can, so I'll tell you what the factors are. There's a list of factors and things that are helpful in terms of helping this this continuity and this relaxation along. But before I get to the factors, I just want to say also that, as you might imagine from the way that I'm describing it, this is not something that you can actually just turn on. You can actually just make happen. Right? It's said that intention is helpful. The intention to have to feel piti is helpful, but that intention to feel piti is helpful because only to the degree that it's helping you stay steady with your meditation. That can help to underpin, right, your persistence with the meditation. Okay, right. I'd like to hang in here long enough with enough relaxation to see if that would come up. So it's like that. There's a sutta that I've been referring to a little bit here and there from the Connected Discourses, the Samyutta Nikaya, and it's called Kaya Sutta, or the nutriments. Let's just use the English. It's the nutriments. It's from Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 46, and chapter 46 is all about the 7 factors of awakening. So there are literally hundreds of teachings that have been given about this framework and how to practice with it and what it means and how to foster it and so on. But this particular sutta is nice because it talks about the hindrances, the things that can get in the way, and how to work with those. And it also talks about the nutriments, the things that are actually the fuel for the positive states, or for the negative, for the hindrances as well. So when we look at the fuel for piti, it says things that are the basis for the enlightenment factor of piti. Frequently giving careful attention to those things is the fuel for the rising of piti. So it's like, well, you didn't answer the question, right? You didn't actually tell us what are those things. You're just saying things that are the factors, right? So why is that? The Buddha also does that with mindfulness. He does that also with mindfulness. Things that are the basis for the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, frequently giving careful attention to them, which things, is the nutriment for the arising of the enlightenment factor of mindfulness. So why does the Buddha do that? So what I would propose is that there are so many factors for the arising of joy that he's not going to make a list, right? There are things for which he has given a very specific list. This, that, and the other thing. When we looked at energy, for example, there were the 3, right? Arousal, persistence, endeavor. That was last week. So when there are a short number of conditions, then he will just give them. But when there are many potential conditions, then it's like that. It's an encouragement for you to actually find, what is it that stokes your joy? What is it that helps you find joy in the practice? So now that said, the commentators, century after century, we have people who are making comments and writing comments. And so the ancient commentators, including Buddhaghosa, gave this list for some factors that we might start with. And you can see how you relate to these. Maybe we can talk about that during the Q&A in a minute. So, recollection of the Buddha, right? Just as this story about this young woman all those centuries ago. So for some people, that's incredibly inspiring. It's incredibly uplifting. Like, wow, this human being came and he figured out the way, and he gave us all these wonderful teachings and this, all these kinds of meditations and all this encouragement. And he said what? He said, I wouldn't tell you if you couldn't do it. He said, I wouldn't teach this unless you could do it. But I teach it because you can. In another place, he says, in this fathom-long body, so fathom is what is like a measurement of distance, of length, roughly 6 feet, I'm told. I don't know, I've never looked it up, actually. In this body, you have, body and mind, you have everything you need to wake up. Yeah. So recollection of the Buddha, sometimes for some people, that's incredibly inspiring. It's uplifting. It's such a wonderful, positive thing. And that can bring a lot of joy. Recollection of the Dhamma, so recollection of the teachings. If there is some teaching that really speaks to you, some quote, some, it doesn't have to be out of the suttas. It could be something that somebody said, in a meditation or a talk that you went to last week. If there's some Dharma teaching that really speaks to you, really uplifts you, then that can be something to bring to mind to help the piti to arise. For me, oftentimes it's poetry. There's some beautiful, beautiful poems by Izumi Shikibu. She was the you could say like the poet laureate in Japan for a number of years, and she wrote some incredibly subtle and beautiful poetry about the path, about the way. And the Sangha. So maybe somebody in your meditation community, maybe just coming on screen and seeing other people sitting. Maybe it's a particular ordained person or a particular teacher or some historical person in the community, again, whose life or whose particular difficulties that they overcame are an inspiration to you, or just the way that the phrasing that different people use can really strike us in different ways. That's one of the reasons to even give a talk. Otherwise, we'd just read it. We just read from the book, and then there would be no need for me to even sit up here, right? Because you would just have the version. But ideally, part of what we're doing here, engaging together, is to really put this all into our current context, into the context of our own lives, the qualities of heart and mind in our own lives. So that's the Sangha. And then recollection of virtue. So that's what I was talking about a minute ago, right? When you make good choices in your life, when you make ethical, positive, upright choices in your life, or you speak well to other people, that's a good way to remind yourself, oh, hey, right, this practice is good. This practice is helping me. That's beautiful, right? You can feel uplifted by that. Generosity, recalling your own generosity is a beautiful way, right? If you have given in ways, your time, your resources, your funds, whatever it is, if you've been generous, you can really enjoy the benefits of that. Or the other way, right? If other folks have been generous with you I was just saying to somebody that even after 16 years of ordained life and 20 years of lay practice before that, I'm always, always pleasantly surprised. Like, oh, how beautiful it is that somebody comes and shows up today with apples and pasta, or that, we need a book and it's possible to get a book, or whatever different forms of generosity that people have given. All the places where I trained, the monastery where I trained in Japan, they had their 500th anniversary in 2020. Was it in 2020 or 2015? Anyway, they've already had their 500th anniversary. And, so that's 500 and some years, right, of people giving and making it possible for me to show up on a plane one day and sit down and meditate and hear the teachings of my root teacher who ordained me and practice there. So we all benefit from that in some way. Not just benefit from the people who took care of, my root teacher's monastery, but we benefit from all the paying it forward that has happened for 2,600 years now. Even today, we see in the suttas, we see the names of people who were generous. We see the names of people like Ambapali, one of the courtesans of the Buddha's time, who was so moved by his teaching that she gave and gave and gave. She's very famous for giving meals and giving cloth and giving the things that they needed in order to keep practicing and keep sharing the Dhamma. So I suppose you could do it to be famous like Ambapali, but more to the point, you could do it, you could be generous because it feels good in your heart, because it will bring you joy. That's actually what this is saying. And just a couple more things, and then I'm going to stop and we'll do some Q&A or comments. And then recollecting the deva. So if you feel kind of interested in that, or you feel supported by that, beings who might be in other places, and recollection of peace. This is always an interesting one for me, the recollection of peace. Like if you had a moment of relaxation or calm or feeling wellness in your practice at any point in the past, just bringing that to mind can also help you to feel joyful. Like, oh yeah, one person said to me, oh yeah, it's like, I'm not completely broken. I've had peace before. I've felt peace before. So I could feel it again. I could have the joy of knowing that I've experienced peace and there could be more peace in my future. It was kind of an interesting reflection that she had. So many ways that you can uplift yourself there. And so just returning to piti, to joy as an awakening factor. We can turn these other kinds of joy, or this kind of physical feeling that comes up for us, into the fuel for the mind that is willing to experience reality in a whole new way, in a way you've never experienced before. How? By the way that is described in the teachings is that is the nature of the mind. All we need to do is put the ingredients in. we put the ingredients in and we keep working with them. And they do their work on us, actually. And we entrust ourselves to that deep clarity of mind that is really there, that it has always been there, right in the midst of the confusion, the busyness, the pain, or the other joys or the other things that we get caught up with. But we bring this willingness to rest, right? That's the relaxation part. We bring the willingness to rest and to stay present. And as long as we keep doing that, then joy will be a factor. Joy comes. Thank you.